Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you had a wonderful weekend and you're set to go here. So we have lots of different topics and good information for you today. So first thing is the 5-minute moneymaker. We're talking about, well, basically, what's the one thing you can do to make people trust you? Pretty darn easy. What's the one thing that you can do to make people trust you? Without reading this, anybody read the 5-minute moneymaker? What's the one thing you can do to make people trust you? Wade's got it. Tom's got it. Nicholas got it. Smile, 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 smile. So they've determined that people in less than, like 5 1/100ths of a second, people determine whether they can trust you or not, and it has to do with different cues that your face gives them, but all those cues come right back to that happen automatically when you smile. So make sure you're always smiling when you're meeting with people, okay? Tape breakdown, 1-minute snippet of a quality of life directive. I was doing a lot of things great, but he was doing one little problem that if he didn't fix it, could be a problem. So make sure you're doing those 5Q breakdowns, and more importantly, make sure every single day you're doing what, guys? What's the most important thing you can do every day? Yep. Nicholas got it. Nicholas, Kevin, yep. What else? Still, yep. 15-minute drill. 15-minute drill. Awesome. Awesome possum. So remember last week we started to talk about making your own luck. So luck comes down to two things: positive attitude and connections. So this week I want to talk about, so last week we talked about just joining things and meeting as many people as possible. This week we're talking about the donut dash, and I'm not going to talk about it too much because Matt at ECA is more than happy to be your concierge through this system. So this is great for if you've got want to meet small business people. It basically costs you, probably $5 a week to do this, to get in front of small business people. And Matt would be more than happy at ECA if you called him and asked him, how do you do this? So that, because he's just walking people through it on a concierge basis, and he'll help you step by step by step. So if you want to get in front of small business people, medium-sized business people, family-owned businesses, and want to sell them IUL in a very, very easy way. Remember when we talked about this here about 6 months ago, how you can buy, or how business people can buy IUL inside of their retirement plans, and how they can then pull that money out at a 30–40% discount? So how many business people, let's answer this, how many business people would like to be able to pull money out at a 30–40% discount out of their, or when I say discount, I mean 30–40% of their withdrawals from their retirement accounts would not be taxed? How many business people would want that? And guess how long it takes for you to present that? About 5 minutes. That's all. It takes 5 minutes to present it. So the Donut Dash is simply visiting one business owner a week or two a week, dropping by with donuts, which cost you $5 at your local convenience store, and asking for 5 minutes at the time. Boom, you present it. If they're interested, terrific. If they're not, terrific. And Jerry told me that we've got guys that are looking at some monster cases because when we presented this about 6 months ago, they actually went and visited the small business people, and those people were interested. And these are monster cases. And guys, you okay with selling some IULs, especially monster case IULs? Hello? Can somebody answer that? Only one person wants to do that. Okay, now we got a bunch of people saying yes. So, dudes, 5 minutes of your time, more than that, let's say 5 minutes of presenting, maybe a total of a half an hour of your time once a week. Guess what, guys? Yeah, Marty, I know about you, Marty. So, this is a great way, a great use of your time once or twice a week. So call Matt at ECA and he'll walk you through this. Again, when I said they're free, can we count $5 as free? Good. So please call Matt at ECA if you're interested in doing that. It's a great use of your time. And is that making more connections? Now, those of you that have been with us for a while, I talk about them. The year I made $1 million, what was I doing 200 times a month? Yes, Nicholas got it, Wade's got it, Jerry's got it. I was writing handwritten notes. Handwritten notes. And was it about, was it just, it wasn't just thank you notes, because if it was thank you notes, was I really bringing on 200 clients a month, guys? No. So what do you think those 200 notes were about? Anything, Nicholas. You're right, Wade. Anything. I was looking for an excuse to and what have I told you about communicating about financial things? Good thing or bad thing to your clients? Bad. Remember, if you go on a date with a girl, the only thing you talk about sex is, guess what she knows about you? All you want is sex. If you only thing you talk about your clients about is money, they know all you want is their money. So my 200 notes were about everything. On the 4th of July, before 4th of July weekend, guess what I sent? What did I send the week before 4th of July? Have a great 4th of July. So Tom reminded me to tell you what I tell you every single year at this time of year, which is you should send out Christmas cards or you should send out Thanksgiving cards. Every year I tell you this. Christmas cards or Thanksgiving cards? Thanksgiving cards. Why? Yeah, both would be good, but if I'm going to choose one or the other, I'm going to send out Thanksgiving cards. Why? Yes, they're getting fewer Thanksgiving cards than they are Christmas cards. So, handwritten notes. Does that mean that you send them out a printed card and sign your signature? Every year I tell you about this. What did I do to the bank? What did I do with the bank that sent me out a Christmas card with the president and the vice president's signatures on it? What did I do? That's all they sent. It was a printed card, and they sent out with their two signatures on it. What did I do with it? No, I didn't do it. You're all saying toss it. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Guess what I did? I talk about this every year too. I moved my account. Why? Why did I move my account? What did they tell me? After I'd been a big customer of theirs for 10 years, what did they tell me? Yeah, they told me they don't care. You know, here's the sad thing. If they hadn't sent me a card, guess what I wouldn't have done? I wouldn't move because out of sight, out of mind. But when they sent me a card with just a signature on it, basically they told me, Mike, you know what? Who cares about you? I mean, I signed probably 300 of these, and you're about the same. I care about you about the same as I care about all the other people. I moved my account. So if you're going to send it, don't send a card unless you're going to what? Don't send a card unless you're going to what? Make it personal. And guys, do you think anybody on the phone right now is busier than I am? And yet, those of you that write business, what do I send out every single month? Those of you are, what kind of thank you? A handwritten thank you. And Missy, I'm delighted. Every time you put that list on my desk, I'm delighted to write out 60, 70 of those cards every single month, aren't I?
Yeah, it's definitely the highlight of your day.
Guys, I don't like doing I mean, I really appreciate the business you send me, but I don't like it. But you know what? Is it worth me spending a minute or two thanking you personally for the business you wrote? Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is, because I do appreciate the business that you do. So I take the time, even though it's a pain in the butt. And that's what makes it special, or should make it special, because how easy would it be for me to send out pre-printed whatever? It would be simple for me to do that. But I take time out of my day, usually during lunch, my lunch hour, to do that, okay? So please, 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 don't forget to write your handwritten notes. And every year I tell you this, do it at Thanksgiving because they're getting fewer cards. Do both, Thanksgiving and Christmas, but if you can do one or the other, do Thanksgiving cards. Make sense? And don't send a card with just a signature on it. That is a slap in somebody's face. Make sense? Coolio. So holy cow, let's talk about this. Do you think if I walked out on the street and I asked people these 6 questions, how do you think they would answer them? Do you think we'll have another major terrorist attack in the next 5 years? What would people on the street say? What would most people on the street say? Do you think there would eventually be a problem with China, either internally or with some other country? What would they say? Do you think that someone or some country could hack into important U.S. computers in the future? Dudes, I hope you understand that that's a problem. And what's the real problem with that? Here's what makes me uneasy every single day. I think about this every day. So maybe I'm a worrywart, maybe I'm a Chicken Little. But do you know how fragile our power grid is? Do you know how fragile our power grid is? Did you know our power grid almost collapsed, or at least half of the whole United States power grid almost collapsed because some Yahoo about 10 years ago shot out a transformer in California, and it overloaded and went down and tripped and tripped and tripped and tripped and tripped all the way down, and luckily they caught it, but one Yahoo almost knocked out half of the power in the United States because they shot out that's how fragile our power grid is. What have people proven about hacking? They can or cannot hack. And do you know if they get into some of our power grid, really any one of the company's power grids, and shut that down, what would it do to all the rest of the power grids? Just one company's power grid being shut down, what would it do to all the other power grids? It'd cascade, exactly, Tom. It'd cascade, right. So these are things that, dudes, if that happened, what would happen to the stock market? Or EMP, right, Steve? Or EMP was silly North Korea, right? Do you think if I ask, do you think big banks or Wall Street is capable of making another big mistake? Guys, what's the website that I showed you a couple times in the last 6 months where we walked through it? What did I show you? What's happening to what kind of security that we have? Derivatives, right, Mark? Derivatives. We have more market derivatives now or less than we had in 2008? Lots more. And what did Warren Buffett call derivatives? Anybody know what Warren Buffett calls derivatives? Weapons of mass destruction, Mark. Exactly right. And he called them that in 2002, 2003, 2004. He basically said derivatives were the weapons of mass destruction. And was he right in 2008? He absolutely was. Do you think our number 5? Do you think our government is getting more dysfunctional? How about that one? And do you think our government's going to continue to go in debt? What's the new tax bill going to do to our debt, guys? What's the new tax bill going to do to our debt? Increase it by little or a lot. So the Democrats, they ran up the debt. The Republicans are going to what? Run up the debt. You know, it's so easy when it ain't your money to do what? So, guys, will any of these things, or could any of these things cause the market to have a major correction? Yeah. Do we know where it's coming from? We have no clue. Anybody recognize this? What is this a picture of? Anybody recognize this? What's the picture of? 60 Minutes did a big story on this about 3 or 4 years ago. Ah, you got it, Tom Raymond. You got it. Everybody's getting it. Yes, China with a bunch of empty houses. They're building ghost cities. And this was done 3 or 4 years ago. Have they stopped, guys? Or are there more ghost cities than there were 3 or 4 years ago? There are more. There are more. Let's just talk about one thing that could happen. Can China really affect U.S. stock markets? Can what happens in China affect stock markets, guys? Specifically ours? Well, last year, what was predictable reporting, this was not like a surprise to anybody, it was predicted about the Chinese manufacturing sector. It led to a 300-point initial drop in the Dow after losses in Asia and Europe. This was last year. So, and everybody knew that Chinese manufacturing was going to go down. They knew it. It wasn't a surprise. They knew it, and it still caused a 300-point drop in the Dow. Later that month, a long forecasted decrease in the value of the Chinese currency was the main factor in almost a 400-point tumble. That's 700 points in a month last year. Was caused by China. So, I mean, my point is that, hey, China pushes to rein in risky lending. China's financial system is in danger of becoming too big to bail out. Bank lending has doubled in the past 5 years. Bigger problem is shadow banking. Companies and people with government connections get low-interest loans from state-controlled banks and then relend it to much higher interest rates to risky private ventures. What does that sound like, guys? That sounds very familiar. What's that sound like? It's not the same, but it's correlated to very much to what happened where? 2008, right, Ray and Kevin? Sounds like what was happening in 2008 here. China has this "we'll fix it" attitude. They just announced that regional bureaucratic protectionism will be curtailed. Banking system immediately reeled. The government backed off. And but instead of stepping in and doing what the hard work they need to, guess what they said? Hey, banks must make rational adjustments to the structure of assets and liabilities. How is that for control? That's the only step they took. That's the only step they took, is they tweeted out that, hey, banks, can you please do me a favor? Can you make more rational adjustments to the structure of your assets and liabilities? No legislation, no regulation. They just said, hey, can you make more rational judgments? How's that going to work for banks? I don't care if they're United States banks or Chinese banks. If all that happens is the government tweets out, hey, be smarter with your money, what's going to happen? They're going to follow that? Yeah, it's laughable, right, Kevin? North Korea, what could happen with China, North Korea, India, Japan, U.S., with the man-made islands that are going on? China's stock market is very inexperienced. What's the problem with China's stock market being very inexperienced? See, they're trying to put in circuit breakers after the fact. And guys, can I ask you a question? This is a trick question. Is the United States an experienced stock market? I'm getting a lot of yeses. So let me ask you a question. Anybody here that knows anything about statistics that would see, I'll give you 120 datum. How valid is any of that information with 120 datum? How many years old is the modern stock market? About 120 years. So China, yeah, they're inexperienced. They've only got 10 datum or 20 datum, but we have 120. Does that really make us seasoned here? So anybody that knows what does it make any 120 years? Is that really 120 years of experience? Does that make? Hey, it's all we got, but it doesn't make you. Have we seen everything in 120 years? In 120 pieces of data, have we seen everything? Not even close. China's market wants to go down. The only reason that the rally continues is China's national team of state and state-controlled entities continue to buy up shares in a bid to restore confidence, because guess what the Chinese people are doing? Buying domestically? No, money's gushing out of the country. Why is money gushing out of China? I could go on and on and on for an hour just on China, and is China the only thing that could cause the market to go down? See, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many problems I have, because math is one of them. Guys, and somebody, who said it earlier? You hit it. Dale, you hit it right. There's too many variables, which actually brings up, the whole reason I'm talking about this is I just read a book called Everybody Lies, Big Data, New Data. This book is about, this guy actually predicted, he was one of the few people who predicted well in advance that Trump was going to win the election. And the way he predicted it was on Google searches. On Google searches. Anybody want to, this is a great book. It talks about what big data can do and what big data cannot do. But he predicted that Trump would win because of one type of Google search. Guess what the Google search was? It spiked in the year before, the entire 10 months before Trump was elected. Guess what search spiked on Google? Viagra. No, not Viagra. Not make America great again. It was racist jokes actually spiked. And that's what gave him, that's why he predicted that Trump would be the winner, because he felt that, because were people walking around the streets doing racial jokes? No, but there were tons of them looking for them online. So guess what that told him? Things that the polls that we were seeing where Trump was losing were accurate or not accurate? Not accurate. So Google is fantastic, because people will do things on Google that they would never do in real life. Would you go walking around looking at porn in real life? No. But guess what people are finally doing on Google? Would you talk about an embarrassing mole that you have on your back in real life? No, but you'll go on Google to search it. So people will search things. So Google is the true is the true truth sayer, because people will do things online that they won't look at or say in real life. And so this book is really, really interesting. But I say that big data is great for most things, but because of this guy has gotten so much notoriety that Larry Summers, who is a former U.S. Treasury, he was the former president of Harvard, and he was a winner of some of the biggest awards in economics. And he thought, hey, this Seth guy, he obviously has got something going on here. So he contacted Seth to come and join him. And guess what he wanted Seth to do? Guess what he wanted Seth to do with his big data? Where do you think this guy went after he left Harvard, the Treasury? He won all these awards in economics. Where do you think he went? Yeah, predict the market, Jeremiah, exactly. He wanted him to predict the market. So they went through huge amounts of data, and guess what they found out? And then I gave you a hint that Dale gave us the answer earlier. What did they find out? There's too many variables. And here's the analogy that he gives. Let's say your strategy for market prediction is to find a lucky coin. So you get 1,000 coins. And every single day you flip the coin. So every morning for 2 years you flip each coin to determine if the market is going to go up or down that day. And after 2 years of daily flipping, you find that coin 391 is right 70.3% of the time. Guess what, guys? If you could predict with the market going up or down 70% of the time daily, how much money could you make? How much money could you make? Tons. But it's the curse of dimensionality. It strikes whenever you have lots of variables, 1,000 coins chasing not very many observations. 500. So I said 120 was a small amount of variations. What's he say is a small amount of variations? For those of you that know statistics, you need thousands and thousands of observations, not 120, not 504 to make any sense of it. But when you have all sorts of variables, guess what can happen to one of those? Because these 1,000 coins are examples of variables. Guess what can happen to one of the variables? It can appear to what? It can appear to be predictive. See, you get one of those dimensions is going to get lucky. You've also probably heard me do this with playing Russian roulette. Eventually, you know, after playing Russian roulette 500 times, there's going to be one guy still standing. Are we going to say that guy's an excellent Russian roulette player, or he was just what? That's the curse. That's the curse of dimensionality too. So there's other curses that are like this. Did you know that the National Football Conference wins, the market's going to go up? So how much of your money are you going to put in the market based on that, guys? It's very accurate. So how much of your market money are you going to put in the market based on that? Let's see some answers to this. It's very accurate. So why would you put, Dave, I wouldn't put any either. Why wouldn't you put any in? If the Baseball National League wins, the market goes up by 8.4. If the AL wins, it only goes up by 2.5. Guys, are these valid ways to predict the market? Men's ties get skinnier, the stock market goes up. Women's headlines go up, the stock market goes up. If it snows in Boston on Christmas, the next year will be a stock market. This is very predictive. So why wouldn't we? The market goes up 9.7% when we have a Democrat president, but only 6.7% when we have a Republican president. Listen to this. When butter production goes up in Bangladesh, the S&P 500 goes up. You want to know what I do now? I have all my money invested in is based on two predictors. Based on two predictors. And it's right 95% of the time. When worldwide sheep population goes up and Bangladesh butter production goes up, the S&P 500 goes up 95% of the time. So guess what I do at the beginning of every single year? I look at Bangladesh butter production and sheep population, and I put all my money in the market when those are higher, and I don't put any of my money in the market when those are lower. What would you call me? An idiot. So when somebody tells me that they figured out the market based on some algorithm or system, what do you think I call them? Nuts, right? I call them nuts. Because it's the curse of dimensionality. There's too many things that can cause the market to go down. It has been the downfall of every hedge fund. It's been the downfall of every star money manager algorithm and system because there are just too many variables. Actually, he goes through multiple examples of hedge funds, algorithms, and systems that were destroyed by people who thought that they'd figured it out because, but were fooled by the curse of dimensionality, which is that the curse of there are just too many variables, and just picking one of the variables is just pure luck. Make sense? So today we're going to listen to a tape on manager tenure. But before we do that, I want you to listen just to a portion of this tape and tell me what this guy sounds like. Okay? So let me bring up my my tape here. And tell me what this guy sounds like. If I can get this over here. Sorry about this. I gotta get my screens all get okay. So tell me what this guy sounds like. Ready?
LPL discuss with you your beta in regards to your holdings.
No.
Okay.
Not their own holdings. Unless they use a different term.
Well, and I'm trying not to get over technical because I don't want to.
Guys, has anybody told you about your beta when it comes to your holdings? This guy's like, not that I'm aware of, listening to the term. And then what? The guy, this then advisor says one thing that the guy knows immediately that he's bullshitting. What does he say? So I'm going to play it again. Tell me what he says that the guy knows immediately that he's BSing him. There we go.
Did LPL discuss with you your beta in regards to your holdings?
No. Okay. Not their own holdings. Unless they use a different term.
Well, and I try not to get over technical because
I try not to get over technical, really. So what does this guy feel like at this point about him, about the advisor? Yeah, I agree with you, Dave. Dave used a colorful word. I'll go with jerk and jackass, as some of the other guys said. So when you do this to somebody, what do you think this guy now is thinking about the advisor? Trustworthy, not trustworthy. Jerk, not jerk. Want to work with them, don't want to work with them. So where in our scripts do we ever talk about beta, guys? Yeah, we don't. We try to talk the language of plain spokenness. And Jeff, can you just remind everybody, those of you who've been in training lately understand this, but why is being plain spoken, Jeff, so important to us when it comes to our presenting? And the reason I'm telling you, the reason I want you to understand this, guys, I do listen to tapes where you like to sneak in the fancy schmancy talk, the technical talk, because you're still falling back to, I want to be an authority. Don't trust me if I'm an authority. Will they trust you if you're an authority? No. So, Jeff, what has science found out about plain talk versus I'm smarter than you talk?
Yeah, so the example that I always use, it's a true story, is that attorneys were trying to figure out how do juries, litigation becomes increasingly complex. So you get into these tens of $millions of deals where, say, a plane crashes. So somebody's going to sue the airline and say it's the airline's fault. The airline's going to say, no, it was the weather. Well, they're both going to call experts to kind of bolster their case. And so what attorneys wanted to know is, well, how do people decide which expert to believe? Because it's going to get down to some technicalities. What they thought is that it would depend on who is more of an authority. So if the expert is from Harvard and your expert is from the University of Kansas, chances are they thought going in that they're going to believe the expert from Harvard. But it turns out when they did the shadow jury and they polled the juries about which experts they believe, it turns out it has nothing to do with their credentials. It has everything to do with how plain spoken they are. Whoever can explain it in layman's terms, so the jury says whoever can explain it in a way that I understand it, that's the guy I believe. Doesn't matter where he comes from, doesn't matter what his degree is in, doesn't matter any of that. If you can explain it in a way that I can understand it, I trust you.
So guys, that's why we tell the stories that we do. That's why we speak the way we do. That's why we break our questions into small questions so that the client can be the expert. so they can explain to themselves. Because there's only one person they believe 100% of the time, and who's that? Themselves, exactly. So here we go.
I don't want to bore you at all. I want to. Beta is one of the primary things people look at in regards to risk and volatility. The S&P 500 stock index has a beta of 1. Okay, so if you had an S&P 500 stock index fund, it should track the S&P very closely. The S&P is up 10%, it should be up 10%. Down 10%, it should be down 10%. And looking at yours, there were a couple of concerns. In regards to your beta, you have a 1.23. So I think above 1 is taking on more risk and volatility than the S&P 500 stock index. Well, what 1 is, yeah, the S&P stock index is a 1, absolutely right. And then above that, you're taking on more risk and volatility than the stock index. So you're taking about 23% more risk and volatility than the stock index. Not a position that I would be thinking would be as appropriate for somebody who's moderately conservative.
Boy, that made the guy feel what? Stupid, right. It made the guy feel stupid for any number of reasons. So this advisor, do you think he's still with 5Q? Guess what this advisor could not stop doing? He couldn't stick to the script. He couldn't, and you'll see, he did work the script in there, but every time he'd work the script in there, guess what he wanted to then do? Show off, right, Andre? He wanted to show off, show off, show off. Guys, guess what I did for 8 years when I made 50 grand? I showed off, right, Dave? Believe me, everybody knew in that 8 years that I was smarter than them, that I knew way more than them, that the things I was telling them that they were doing wrong, they actually were doing wrong, and what did that get me? Nothing. Got me 50 grand a year. Okay? So I just left this, I wanted you to go over the manager tenure, but I left this on there just so you could hear an example. And how many advisors, if we listen to advisors, how many advisors sound like this, guys? How many advisors that are not 5Q trained sound like this? Most, yes. Most, if not all. Because they've all been trained what? Be the authority. So, do you see how that does not help you? If you were on the receiving end of that, well, even listening to that, is that painful to listen to that guy? Now that you know the better way to do it, is it painful to listen to that guy? So now he's going to go into manager tenure, but I thought when I was looking for this tape, through this tape, I heard that. I was like, man, I got to let you guys hear how horrible it sounds when you go off script and start to show people how smart you are. It's not a good thing, okay? So here we go. So tenure, do we want to, now we've talked about this before, do we want to telegraph where we're going? Never. Because then they'll start to object even before, we get to our point. How many people would say that having an inexperienced pilot is a good thing? None. So why do I start with something that nobody would argue with? Because then if they don't argue with that, they're going to agree with me, and they're painted into a corner, Dave. That's exactly what's going to go on. They can't argue later. Wait. So if they agree that it's not, they wouldn't want an inexperienced pilot, they wouldn't want an inexperienced surgeon. Guess what? They're also going to admit. They don't want somebody who's inexperienced managing their money. Get it? But if I go right for the money, listen to what happens. First of all, the guy's a little pissed off anyways because of how this advisor treated him. So guess what the guy's going to do? Open this manager tenure with open arms, or he's going to be looking for a way to push back. He's going to be looking for a way to push back. And because the guy started out with making him feel stupid, and then he jumps right into his funds, listen to what happens here.
Okay. The tenure of your fund manager?
No, also, guys, listen to the advisor's tone here. Okay, I'm going to go back.
Okay.
What does that sound like, guys? Very condescending, exactly. I'll play it again here.
Not a position that I would be thinking would be as appropriate for somebody who's moderately conservative. Okay.
How would you feel if that guy said that to you? You're in a position that I don't think is a very good position for you to be in, okay? Guys, that's how a father talks to a son, and how does the son react to that? So how well do you think somebody who's your peer or an adult is going to react to that? Now, I'll bring this up because I work with my son on, he sends me tapes, and because of when he was born, he's a millennial, and millennials have a tendency to end all their sentences with an uptick, almost like Australians do. Every sentence is with an up. So when he's talking, did you go to the, did you see what was on the news? Did you let's go drive a car? So every sentence was ending with an uptick. Did he have any clue that he was doing that before he started to hear himself on a tape? And guess what he fixed in 2 weeks? That, because I pointed out to them that uptick sounded like you were not confident. It sounded like you were always questioning what you were saying. He heard it on the tape and he fixed it. Guess what? Do you think this guy had any idea that he sounded so condescending? No. The tapes don't lie. So that's the importance of listening to your tapes, okay? So I'm going to back it up a little, and then we're going to listen to the rest here. There we go.
Okay. The tenure of your fund managers? Of 7.3 years.
That's right.
You hear what he said? It's about 7.3 years. That's a concern. So what's the guy doing? He's saying, so what? Exactly right. Back it up here.
About 7.3 years.
Concern?
Well, let me ask you a question. The market's been around for over 80 years. Do you think there's some managers with 20 years experience, 30 years experience?
I'm not sure.
Well,
I'm not sure. They're sure, but what are they doing at this point? Are they going to give them anything at this point? Yeah, they're pushing back.
I'm not sure.
well, and that's my fault because there are managers with more experience than some.
Wow, that was a great falling on the sword, wasn't it? That's my fault. But there are managers with more experience. Where did that falling on the sword go? Effective or not effective?
And there are some with less experience in 7.2 years. Do you remember Captain Sully?
Oh, so he's got the script there, but he's doing it what? In order or out of order? Out of order. See, when you do it out of order, now it sounds like the reason he's bringing up the pilot is to what? Defend his point of view. If you do it up front, will anybody argue with having a pilot with great experience argue with you? No. But if you do it after they question whether it's a problem, manager tenure is a problem, now it sounds like you're what? Arguing. So you got to do these things in the right order. That's the importance of knowing the scripts. When you know the scripts, you got to get them in the right order, and then because if you get them out of order, it'll seem like you're arguing. Versus if you do it in the right order, they paint themselves into a corner because nobody's going to argue with having a pilot with experience is a good thing or a surgeon with experience is a good thing. But if you do it afterwards, guess what they could say? Could they say something like, well, I want a pilot that comes out of school and knows all the best things out there. I think they're training pilots really well. I want a pilot with good that's really excited about it. Could they say stupid things like that? Yes, they can. And they will. Why? Because they believe him, or they just don't want to agree with the guy who's making them feel stupid. They're just saying that because they don't want to feel like they're stupid, so they're going to argue even though they don't agree with it. Does that make sense? There we go. Back it up a bit.
Do you remember Captain Sully?
Yeah.
Who
Did the Hudson Bay
landing? Do you recall?
What did he do right there, guys? She was saying the Hudson Bay landing. What did he do right over the top of her? Talked right over her.
Hudson River, sorry, John.
Do you recall what he said was the reason why?
She's telling the story, so he talked over her first, then she said another thing, and then he completely what? Ignored her.
He was able to go ahead and crash landed successfully in the water. It was because of his experience. And he said that, the question is...
So has the client agreed with anything? So far, we're about 3 minutes into this. Has the client agreed with anything the guy has said so far? Not a single thing. So the guy has he moved ahead at all? Not if they haven't agreed on any single thing, he's not moving at all. But has he moved backwards? Yeah, a lot.
For 3 years, we've seen a lot of things in the last 14 years in the market. 2 major corrections. With 7.3 years, they've seen a portion of that.
Right.
Would you rather have somebody with more experience who's been through bad markets, good markets, ups and downs, and everything else like that? It's just something I always point out because.
So does this guy know he's in trouble? I always know when somebody knows they're in trouble. What happened to his tone of voice and what he said? He said, yeah, and that's just something I point out. So he's been very arrogant at this point, but when he said that, was he arrogant or did he sound a little defensive or a little cowed? So, it's just something I want to point out. See, he knows he's getting pushback now, both verbally and non-verbally, and now his pushiness and his arrogance has gone backwards. So he's finally recognizing that. But you know what the problem with that is? Guess what he's gotten at this point? Did he get anything with the manager tenure? Nothing.
It's just something I always point out because obviously more experience is preferable than less experience. Because there's definitely managers out there. There's managers with my group that have got 25 years experience. So.
What do you do there? Should we ever talk about ourselves at this, with my group, Dave Wright? Should we ever talk about ourselves? No. But if you work with me, I've got great experience with my managers. What does he sound like there, guys? What did he sound like right there? That he's a what? Salesman. Move your money to me and you'll get great manager tenure. Dudes, anything, even if he was doing everything else right, let's say he did everything else right by saying that you've got the fix for them at this meeting. Is this meeting about your fix? Does this meeting have anything to do about you or the things that you can do for them or your fixes? No, because if you talk about your fixes, guess what that does to you going through and having them realize their guy isn't doing the right thing? It undermines it. Because they're like, oh, I see what you're doing. You want me to think my guy's bad, so I what? Move to you. Can we say anything about what we do and what we have and how much better we are at this meeting? No. Okay, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that.
So it's just something that I point out because lots of times it's overlooked.
So it's a concern because they don't have as much experience as, in your mind, they should have.
Quite potentially.
What did he say there? That gives him that tells him immediately, I screwed up. That's right, in your mind. So in your mind, you're saying this isn't a good thing. Guess what's going on in the client's mind? Yeah, I see exactly what you're doing. You're trying to tell me this because you want me to what? Move my money to you. So do you think this guy's moved forward with this, or do you think he's moved backwards? Backwards. Backwards. So here we go. Hey, and Jeff, I'm going to call on you in a second because we worked the dickens with this guy, right? So I want you to for you to give me some feedback on why you think this guy could not be coached and wouldn't listen to us and finally just left. So I'm going to ask you that here in a minute or two, Jeff, as we finish this tape.
Find they should. Quite potentially. They may not have seen all the different market conditions and things of that nature which can come about. Somebody who's got more experience, logically, has been through more market corrections, more ups and downs, seen sideways markets, and taking actions to go ahead and try to protect us at all times. We talked about your turnover ratio.
Okay, so what did this guy get for tenure? So we spent 4.5 minutes, and what did we get? Not only did we get nothing, we what? We moved backward. Bad vibes, that's what we got exactly, bad vibes. So guys, pilot experience. Talk about why would you want a pilot with a lot of experience? Then talk about the cell lead and talk about why pilot experience makes sense, because they've seen what? All types of weather conditions. They've had mechanical failures. They've had problems with the passengers. They've had weather problems. They've had airport problems. They've had, you have them tell us all the things that can go wrong on an airplane and why it would make sense to have a pilot that was that good at it. How about surgery? Same thing. You want a surgeon who's brand new, or a surgeon's done a gazillion of these. Why? Because what could happen? Could he open do you want, is every surgery the same, or can things happen? Do you want somebody who's experienced all that, or somebody who's experienced it for the first time? Blah, 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 blah. Then you go into, hey, the stock market, the modern stock market's been around for over 100 years. Do you think there's anybody do you think if the market's been around for over 100 years, and you've got tens of thousands of choices for money managers, do you think any of those managers have been doing this as a career? Well, yeah, they have been doing it. I'm sure they have. Yeah, so a career would last how long? 20, 30, 40 years. 20, 30, 40 years. So do you think there's been any money managers out there who also have a lot of experience, have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years? Well, there'd have to be. See how I'm making them say that? Now, which means they've seen what? Have they seen good markets? Yeah. Down markets? Yeah. Wars? Yeah. Peacetime? Yeah. Interest rates up? Yeah. Interest rates down? Yeah. Have they seen Democrat problems or Democrat president? Yeah. Republican president? Yeah. Have they seen? You can go through a whole laundry list of things and say, so why would you want your money manager to have seen all those things? And they explain to you. See, but at that point, then when I say, then I show them how much tenure they have. After they told me that they're pilots, surgeons, and money managers, it would make sense to have a lot of experience. That's when I show them their tenure is only 7 years. Because what do they have to say at that point? Oh, yeah, no, sorry, I was wrong. It is okay to have a pilot with no experience. It is okay to have a surgeon with no experience. It is okay to have a money manager with no experience. Can they say that at that point? They can't. They have to do this in the right way. So, were you shown this? Did you know that your tenure was on average only 7 years? Well, if there's tens of thousands of managers out there, lots of them, do you think, some of them only have 1 year experience, and some of them have how many years experience? Well, 30 years. Yeah, and we want, again, what kind of experience? 1 year or 30 year? Well, 30 year. So how do you think they get, and yours only have what, 7 or 30? 7. So how do you think these companies get people to work with inexperienced managers then? Because if you had a choice, would you want to work with an inexperienced manager or an experienced manager? Well, experienced one. So how do you think these companies get advisors to recommend inexperienced managers? How do they? Pay them more, or that's one way, right? Pay them more, or they could also what? Promote them more. Promote them more. Is that any better, guys? Promoting one person more versus another person. Yes, that's a problem. What they should have done is what? Listen, I've got one manager at 7 years, one at 30 years. Which one do you prefer? Did they do that? Did their advisor do that? Let's everybody answer this. No. Why didn't the advisor do it? Didn't know, didn't care, or did it on purpose? Does it really matter to the client's wherewithal whether he didn't know, didn't care, did it on purpose? No, it doesn't. So, guys, again, Jeff, just briefly, why did we quit working with this gentleman? Why did he bail out?
He didn't, well, I would say he didn't have success. He just didn't, he never was really able to embrace what it is we were trying to do. He always had to be the smartest guy in the room.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when I had a conversation with him about not using big words? What did he tell me?
He said he couldn't stop using big words.
So, guys, anybody that says he can't start using big words, is that guy a smart guy or a dumb guy? Yeah. So, I mean, this guy had a complex. What was his complex? He had to be the smartest guy in the room. And you know what? If you've got that complex, is that going to work for you? And luckily, I would say, Jeff, I don't think we have anybody on the system like that at this point. Do you?
No, I don't. No.
Yeah. So you guys are awesome. You guys have bought into the fact that being plain spoken, and that's why you were so probably cringing when you were listening to this guy. So you're doing things the right way. You're speaking the language that people want. So keep up that great work and keep learning. Do you see why I say go back to after you learn the scripts, go back and learn them again? Why? So we don't just have the scripts down, but we actually have them down in the right order. And we also, what can we use when we're in front of a client to make sure that we get them in the right order? What can we use to make sure we always get the scripts in the right order? Your crib notes or your agenda you call to a client. So you don't, because if you get them in the wrong order, these things are magical. I predicted 20 years ago what your client would say. In 1997, I predicted what your client would say in 2017. Powerful or not powerful? I mean, that's unbelievably powerful. But you got to do them in the right order, or you can get yourself some problems. Even if you have the script, if you do them in the wrong order, you can have some problems. So, but the biggest problem this guy had is not scripting. What was the biggest problem this guy had? And I think Joe said it: pride. Which you need ego. That's right, ego. You need to park your ego at the door and let the client be the smart guy in the room. You do that, you'll be unbelievably successful. So keep up the great work. I mean, 2017 has been a great year. Let's just use it, though, as a launching pad. Like I said, I can't believe how many people have learned the scripts. I hope this gives you even more impetus to go back and learn them even better. Do you see how, if you can get a client to say that even at this little tenure, that they purposely withheld that information from them, what is the client telling you? Even with little manager tenure, what was the client telling you if they tell you that the advisor purposely didn't show me other managers with more experience? What are they telling you? I can't trust my guy. Even something as little as tenure. How many advisors in this industry can use something as benign as manager tenure to get their guy to leave, get the client to leave their guy? Do you see how powerful this is? Even with manager tenure, are we getting them to give us the motive? Motive. So guys, keep up the great work. You got about a month and 2-3 weeks before we run into the biggest 3 months of our year for marketing. So keep hammering this down. Keep doing the hard work you've been doing, and just grasp how powerful this is, that you know exactly what a client's going to say if you do it right. So when you master your crib notes and motive, you're daily practicing your 15-minute drill and GOTS within that 15-minute drill, you're doing your 5-minute moneymaker and breakdowns, you will get, next year in 2018, you will get every client you sit down in front of, and we are going to be rolling out in January a marketing program that will get you in front of tons of people, okay? So you will have the people that you need, but is there any sense having all the people you need if you can't do the 21-point checklist? Everybody answer this. Got one answer. Good, everybody's answering. So please spend the next 6-7 weeks mastering, even if you've mastered the 21-point checklist. I think, like I said, there are more people that have the 21-point checklist down than have ever in the 17 years we've been coaching people. But now I want you to learn it until you get it right or until you can't get it wrong. Do it till you can't get it wrong, and you will have an ATM next year, okay? You'll have an ATM next year. So keep up the great work, and we will talk to you all next Monday. Have a great week, guys.